to I don't know what the schedule is right now, but we met with Father Raphael, and Father Raphael gave some interesting information to us. It's we kind of already know what's the case, but what he said is that last year in July, Father Zas invited Father Raphael here to New York, to the new house, his new palace place. So it's just down the road, you know. He flew him up to New York to meet with him. So it's July of 2016, 2016, last year. And he says, come back with us, with Bishop Williamson and so on, accept his position on the new Mass and so on, and come back with us. And you can have your monastery back in Colombia. Now, Father Zas is theoretically a priest, according to Bishop Williamson. Father Zas is going to be ordained consecrated as a bishop for United States, not for Colombia. But yet he told Father Raphael, if you come back with us, Bishop Williamson, you can get your monastery back in Colombia. And you see this house? I paid over $1 million for this house. Actually, we know it's 1.4 million, right? Went for 1.4 million. Because just it's in the public record. That needs to go back in the car also. Put it right on put it right on the driver's, on my seat, the driver's seat.
The keys.
And I need the keys. The other keys are very difficult to drive. Yeah. So then, and then just come back and you can give me the keys.
Sorry, good night to you.
No, you're not leaving yet. You're putting that in the car on my seat, and you're bringing me back. Think of 1 coffee and 2 creams. Just repeat that. Okay, all right. So, yeah. So in any case, he's very tired because he hasn't slept since 2 days ago, which is no excuse. But nonetheless, he's translated. Igor, he was from North Carolina, he's Mexican, we brought him to the trip to South America. He was translating maybe 12, 14 hours of translation for Father Hugo and I, each day, just translating. And then for some reason he's tired. But in any case, we have so we met with Father Raphael. Of course, he speaks Mexican, but he also speaks English, so we speak to him in English. And because Father Raphael said he was brought here, just your neighbor, only a few minutes down the road, and Father Zas told him, if you come back with us, you can have your monastery back. And, but you just have to hold the Bishop Williamson line about the new Mass and the Vatican II and so on. But if not, we will crush you. We're going to crush Father Pfeiffer. We're going to crush them. And we are making an all-out attack, and they will be destroyed. Then he said that, we got this $1 million house here, and, we offered it up to you. You can have all the money you need. Because he knows that, we only operate from week to week in our situation. He knows Father Raphael is a difficult situation. You'll have all the money you need. You can get your monastery back. But if not, you, Father Raphael, will be crushed. Right? So for someone who's just in charge of the United States, he's making decrees about Colombia. And also, where does these millions of dollars come from? He said, we've got money. We got the support of Bishop Williamson. You got to follow us or you will be crushed. And and also he said, Father Pfeiffer, he's going down and we're going up. And he said how he's got hundreds and hundreds of faithful, and I've got no faithful. So he just lied. It's the opposite way. So, but nonetheless, he says we got so many faithful here and so many faithful there. He must have been speaking of here and also of Texas and and then in Kansas. He must have been speaking of those places. And we've got many faithful. He's got none. He's going down. We're going up. We're going to destroy him. Now you see, notice in our battle, I'm fighting against Bishop Fillet, Pope Francis, and Bishop Williamson, unfortunately, because he decided to change his doctrine. But we're not fighting to destroy any of them. What we need to destroy is the errors, the heresy, and the leading of souls away from God. That's what we need to destroy, including their own souls. Because if they don't turn back to God, they're in danger of eternal damnation. That's the way it is. So that, let's remember the St. Catherine of Siena situation. Remember that St. Catherine, she realized that there's no difference between the external and dogmatic life and the internal and spiritual life. There's no difference between the political life of kings and the spiritual life of bishops and popes. That kings are judged by Christ, popes are judged by Christ, politics is judged by Christ, and religion is judged by Christ. And you're judged by Christ when you go to bed at night and get up in the morning and when you go out in the streets. He's the judge of all. So therefore there's only one world, only one kingdom, only one universe under Christ. And hence it matters whether the pope, bishops, or priests believe the truth or don't believe the truth. And we have to try to help them to come back to the truth. And when we condemn Bishop Williamson, and we do condemn him, and when we condemn Bishop Fillet, and we do condemn him, and we condemn Pope Francis, the Bishop of Rome, and we do condemn him. Why do we condemn them? Because they've turned away from the faith of Christ, and they're using their ecclesiastical prestige, their ecclesiastical orders, their priestly orders, and their whatever power they have to lead souls away from God and into error. Therefore, we have to say they're doing a bad thing and they're wrong. And we also have to, from time to time, we have to name them. Why do we have to name them? Pope Francis, why does he have power and influence over people? Because he's Pope Francis. If he was just another Father Skippy or Protestant minister Skippy, he would not have the authority and the power to bring souls away from God. But because he's Pope Francis, many people are following him only because of his name. Therefore, we must not only condemn the error, but we must also associate the name with the error, since the name is the reason why the people are following him. Same with Bishop Fillet in our circles of Catholic tradition. It is not enough to say that it is wrong to accept the new Mass, it's wrong to accept Vatican II, but we have to explain to our people that Bishop Fillet is wrong when he says these things, and that Bishop Fillet is wrong when he's bringing the Church of the traditional Catholics into the mouth of the lion of modernist Rome. And why do we accept it? Because of the name of Bishop Fillet. Since the name of Bishop Fillet is the reason for the acceptance of the error, we must associate the error with the name. Same is true with Bishop Williamson. In our resistance, people say, I'm following the bishop because he's the bishop. Well, if the bishop is teaching wrong and the people are accepting wrong because of the name of the bishop, then we must not only condemn the error, but the name associated with the error. And now we have four new bishops. So we got 4 bishops. We got 3 bishops with Bishop Fillet, so now they're outnumbered in a dogfight. Bishop Fillet, Bishop Tissier, Bishop de Galarreta, and then you got Bishop Williamson, Bishop Thomas Aquinas, Bishop Four, and now in a couple of days, May 11th, will be Bishop Zendejas. And the Bishop Zendejas continues as Father Zendejas has done, like you know yourself here. When that Mass happened on November the 1st, Feast of All Saints, we had about 7 people or 9 people at that. How many of you were at that Mass of All Saints Day, which was a Saturday Mass after Father Zas came on the Christ the King. 6 days later, Saturday was November the 1st, 2014. There were about 9 people at Mass.
7.
There were 7 people at the Mass. And one of them was Frank Corso, wasn't it? I think he was one of the 7, wasn't he?
Oh, he might have showed up.
So he came in and left. Okay, but there were 7 people that came to the Mass. These 7 people didn't know that there was another Mass that day. I met with Father Zas after that Mass. He came over and met me at the hotel. Was it this one? No, it was the other one. The Holiday Inn Express. Yeah, it was Holiday Inn Express. And over on, continuing down on 6, a few miles down the road. And so I met with him after Mass. And he told me, the first thing is, you notice, Father Pfeiffer? Notice how I didn't say any Mass today? First thing he told me. Notice how I just left your Mass as the only Mass? Because I told you I don't want to interfere. Now, what he didn't tell me was he just left Mass with 50 people. He had just left saying Mass for 50 people. Now, the 7 people, of which some of you are here, was Boli or who else? There was several of you are here from that Mass. You didn't know there was a Mass that day, right? Other than my Mass.
We were the chosen ones.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right. You were there. And they did not know that there were 50 people knew that Father was having Mass. And they were told, don't go to Father Joe Pfeiffer's Mass. This is all part of the takeover plan. October 30th, October the 20th, whatever day it was, the 26th or whatever day it was, 6 days before November the 1st, Father Zas came in, had Mass for about 85 people. Remember the last time I came to say Mass, only 2 weeks before Father Zas, we had 85 people at Mass. I come back again November the 1st, we had 7 people at Mass. What I didn't realize, and of course I found out, and he knew I would find out, 50 people aren't going to keep a secret. Of course I found out that there were 50 people at his mass. And these people did not inform the 7 people that did come to mass. They didn't even know because they knew not to call them. So they didn't even inform them. So they deliberately did not inform some. They deliberately informed others, stay away from that mass. Now I found out on September the 23rd, 2014, a month before, Father Zas had set up a legal corporation in New York and Connecticut with 2 of my parishioners, faithful parishioners, going to mass and smiling and happy every day and saying there's no problem, everything is great, we love you, Father, we're with you 100%, signing the documents, establishing the legal corporation of Father Zas, establishing the legal documentation, establishing the checking account, establishing everything, September 23rd. Meanwhile, I've been trying to contact Father Zas. He never responds to my calls. I can't get a hold of him at all. He was in France part of that time. I heard he had left the society. I had communicated with him beforehand, but now I can't reach him. It was a complete setup right here in Connecticut of a coup d'etat. It's called a hostile takeover. Now, when October the 30th came, they had the mass. He had the mass. Said, I'm going to offer you a mass every week for at least 1 year. I can give you regular masses. I provide you another option. I'm not going to give you the answer to the crisis of the church. Remember, we have it recorded, the words of Father Zas, that sermon and that talk that he gave that week. I don't know how many of you were there for that. And then he then the next Saturday he came and met me. We talked for about 2.5 hours, plus or minus. And the first thing he told me is, notice I didn't have mass. That was a direct lie. He did have mass for 50 people. Those people were told not to come to my mass. What was the purpose? Well, I would see there's only 7 people at mass. I remember 2 people coming in. That's right, 2 people came in before the mass. And I came out of confessions. There's like nobody going to confession. I come out of the confessional. I see there's 6 people there. The altar's not set up. Because they normally have the altar set up. I had to finish setting the altar myself, which I do almost everywhere. So it wasn't exactly a big deal. Then I saw these 2 individuals come in, big smile on their face, laughter, and then they went out. And that's right. So then the 7 were there at the mass. So I said the mass. And they forget about the fact that they thought that we would not come back. But of course, remember, the faith continues. We still have, now there's about 50 of us back again, in this area. Coming back to the mass and so on, rebuilding back up from that original 7 from November the 1st. And so that Saturday Mass of the Holy Day of Obligation there. So this is the way Father began his first week in the resistance. That was his first week. This is not a sign of a servant of God. Now, and then on the first Sunday afterwards, another person, came to Mass and informed me how when he was in Ridgefield, his son was made to be married in the Indult Mass when he wanted to be married in the Latin Mass. But Father Zas, from the true Mass in Ridgefield, Father Zas said, no, you must be married in the Indult. And all kinds of other things since then that we've learned, which aren't important just to divulge. But nonetheless, that was the public beginning. That was the public beginning. And then, of course, we continue to say Mass, and of course, we continue to rebuild and from what we had before back up again, because we're standing for the truth and for the faith. And remember, Father said, Father Pfeiffer and Father Hugo, they can't provide you Mass every week, whereas I can. We can give you regular Masses. Now, and as time has progressed, some of the people are leaving that little chapel over there, coming over here. They're coming back to us, or coming to us the first time, because of the fact, same reason. Because they're not hearing the clear Catholic doctrine. They're not hearing the clear profession of the faith. They're not hearing the condemnation of the errors. Speaking to a Catholic man in Ecuador the other day, he says, if you go to the Fraternity of St. Peter Mass or the New Society Mass, and it's as though there's no crisis in the church. There's no crisis in the church, but there is a crisis. And we're in it, in the middle of it. And so we had to persevere in that crisis. Also, one young man told us, who speaks with some of the sisters in the convent of Quito, Ecuador. He said some of the sisters in the convent of the Conceptionist Abbey, they think as we do. But they, of course, are not in positions of authority. We know the sisters. Remember, the Blessed Virgin Mary said there will be at least one faithful sister in that convent till the end of the world. So one of the young men there in the who actually stays in the convent, where some of them stay there and part of the convent, and then it's a big little convent, big convent. And is that they occasionally don't interact with sisters very much. They occasionally interact with them, and some of the sisters They think the same as we do, that they realize the crisis in the church deeply, even though they have the new mass there and they don't have the traditional mass. And the sisters, of course, that are in there, they're trapped, but they recognize the real crisis of the church, as Mother Mariana was right in her prophecies and so on, and they're being fulfilled right now. So in a few days, May 11th, so now tomorrow is May the 1st, so we only have 11 more days, comes the consecration of bishops and deacons. Now, the grave error that he did in the beginning, which is a serious sin against justice, against charity, and against truth, it can all be forgiven. It can all be forgiven. On the condition that he comes back to the clear expression and communication of the true faith. And this is the problem that we have. We don't have that. Rather, we have an active work to try to destroy us. Wherever they think that Father Pfeiffer and Father Hugo, Lady Mount Carmel are strong, that's where they go. So wherever they think we're weak, they don't worry. Or wherever they think we're poor, they don't worry. Or where they think our main financial support might be coming from, where they think that the help comes from, that's where they go. And yet we continue to survive miraculously from week to week. One example is this last couple of weeks. I wanted to go down to South America, but I said, it's going to be $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 to fly down there. And meanwhile, we're $2,000 in the hole. That's 3 weeks ago. We normally $1,000 in the hole. That's our usual hole. About 1,000. But we were over 2,000 in the hole, which is more than usual. But even though that happens almost every week, we always get enough money to fly the circuit the next week anyway. Occasionally, I have to drive back from the circuit. Or I just take some cash from the, I go to the airport and buy a ticket and fly back, find out when I get on the circuit, sometimes I don't know how I'm going to get back. But so far I've always made it back every single time and been able to be there for the classes with the seminarians every single time. Father Hugo, we're able to get him back each time. And yet, sometimes can't buy the tickets till Friday night, sometimes can't buy the tickets till Saturday morning. That's one reason why you get mass circuits announced very late, because we can't buy the tickets. Pretty simple. There's a new rule in the airlines. If you don't have the money, they don't give you the ticket. I don't know how we've had that rule, but at least it's one we've experienced. And so, but in any case, so we have to wait to sometimes the last late announcements. And even after all these years, 5 years of, you're going to get mass in 5, 6, 7 weeks, but you don't know when. Could be 4, could be 5, could be 6, could be 3 sometimes, it depends on the tickets. It depends on whether, but we always continue the mass, and we've still been able to keep the circuits more or less within 7 weeks for all the about 50 places that we go to. There's a few of them we only go to 2 or 3 times a year. But we've been able to do it. And even some of our people that have died in places, the deaths have happened in such a way that we've always been able to do the funeral. If it happened at another time, it would totally destroy our schedule or make it impossible for us to get there, but they always die right on schedule. So that we're able to get for the anointing, we're able to get for the burial. This happens all the time. One was just recently when Father Hugo's grandmother, well, not his blood grandmother, but Mrs. Murphy died. When that happened, we're $2,000 in the hole. And they said, they're going to cremate her. They're not going to allow her to be buried Catholic because it's her only faithful daughter. No money, no means of support. Spent the last years taking care of her mother, and the family had a hold, and there was no way she could receive a Catholic burial. So we had to raise $8,500. Paul the Mexican put on the internet, I think at like 6 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. Padre needs $8,500. Right? By 7 in the morning, this is nighttime. By 7 in the morning, we had $9,500. So it was within 8 or 10 hours. And not only that, but other people gave money over the same period, not for that purpose, just giving regular money, so that we're no longer $2,000 in the hole, we went positive. Not only that, we're able to buy the plane tickets to go on the circuit on the weekend. We were able to make the trip out here in order to do the funeral. All this happened at the same time. Then it turned out we needed another $3,000 to actually have her buried in the plot that she owned. So you might want to be aware of that now. You own a plot, doesn't mean you can be buried. So you might want to watch that. You think because you own the plot you can be buried? No. You got to pay for the vault. You got to pay for the opening and closing costs, and that's even if you don't use the funeral home. And so and by the way, I've already had multiple cases now where people are dying. The first time I had it was about 10 years ago, and they cannot be buried. They'll keep them on ice for 1,000 years. They throw them in a freezer, and they will not bury them. So because if you have no money, no house, and nothing, they throw you in the poverty cemetery, called White Tanks in Phoenix. But if you had one of our guys who died in Phoenix, he had a $1,000 insurance policy, from 1916, which was enough to do a funeral back then, not in 2005 or 2002, whenever he died, around the year 2000. So he could not legally be buried. Because he had a $1,000 insurance policy, he was not poor, even though he had no money, no house, no income. He had a $1,000 policy, which means he was no longer legally poor. He could not be legally buried. He was on ice for about 3 or 4 weeks. We had to raise the money in order to be able to bury him. And of course, as it happened in Phoenix all the time, we had to bury him during a retreat. Because the rule in Phoenix in a retreat house, no one dies in between retreats. Nobody gets buried in between retreats. They only die during a retreat. I even complained one time when I was a pastor there, stop dying during retreats. The next week, somebody died during a retreat. But the thing is, but the fact is that God will, we're having these legal problems now with the first time. We had some problems the last few funerals. All of them were overcome, but problems we hadn't experienced before. Refusing burials and things like that. So you may want to watch with regard to your own funeral to make sure that, for instance, even if you own the plot, you better make sure that you can have opening and closing of the tomb. But all the money was raised, and then I said, well, we can't go to Ecuador. We're going to have to cancel that, because remember, the funeral was only 2 weeks ago. And we were in the debt, $2,000 in the hole, 3 weeks ago. But then what happened? We got enough money to be able to buy the tickets, to be able to actually visit Father Raphael. It turned out very good. We had a good meeting with Father Raphael and visit the people, some of the people in Colombia, some of the people in Ecuador, and we're able to do the trip anyway. And still able to get the tickets to come back and so on. So we live by week to week and day to day and month to month, and they're trying to shut us down. We can be shut down in one instance. We're a very fragile operation, very, very fragile. We only go from week to week and day to day. But the money doesn't always come from the same source, it comes from different sources. And people just throw it here and throw it there. And so we depend really and truly on divine providence over the last 5 years, and that's how we survive. And meanwhile, they're trying to find out who's your main supporter, where's the main parish, shut it down. We're going to stifle them. We're going to cut them off. That's what they say. And that's what they have been saying for several years. Meanwhile, let them try to cut. As long as we stand for the truth and continue to do the work of Archbishop Lefebvre, I believe the Blessed Virgin Mary will continue to protect us. And when we turn against that, then we don't need to be protected anyway. There's no need. And so then we can collapse and burn. But until that time, I don't believe Our Lady is going to allow it to happen. And, and here in Ridgefield and Danbury, in this area, is one of the places of the major attacks, because I think that all New Yorkers and Connecticut people are all multi-billionaires, and that if you shut off New York and Connecticut, then you shut off all the support. And then also, of course, there's many Catholics in this area, traditional Catholics in this area, so cut them off there. They got the little map, cut off the strategic area here, cut off the strategic area. They don't realize we're a bunch of idiots, and we just go wherever, don't have any strategic areas. And so, but the fact is that we go where the call of the faithful is, where divine providence calls. That's where we go, and that's what we need to continue to do. So, in any case, they got did they say that, but anyway, we'll have to go, but just to give a little update there, but we just got to persevere in the battle and not alter. And Father Zas Father Raphael did say no, he stood for the truth. And then Father Zas said, if I had known you were this hard line, I wouldn't have invited you up here. You were this rigid, right? And we're talking about the new Mass. We don't say the new Mass. We don't go to the new Mass, and our people don't go to the new Mass. Most of them actually do, but they're not supposed to. And the fact is, so why should we be bothered about this new Mass baloney? Why? It makes no sense whatsoever. But if you see the big picture, to mentally prepare souls to come back into the modernist church, to mentally prepare souls to abandon the truth of our faith handed down to us faithfully by Archbishop Lefebvre. You got to mentally prepare souls. Even in South, we're just in Ecuador, in the middle of nowhere. Massive argument about what? Grace in the new Mass, with some guy who never goes to the new Mass. So I'm sitting here, I don't say the new Mass. I'm talking to a faithful guy who doesn't go to the new Mass, and we're arguing for 3 hours about the new Mass. At the end I said, this is stupid. I should be arguing with a Novus Ordo priest about the new Mass. I should be arguing with somebody that goes to the new Mass every day about the new Mass. I should be arguing with somebody who believes the new Mass is wonderful and holy. I should be arguing with somebody like that about the new Mass. Why am I arguing with someone who doesn't go to the new Mass? Why am I arguing with somebody who says he won't go to the new Mass about how wonderful the new Mass is? Why on earth am I doing that? It's insane. And so yet the young boys we're talking to, they know we don't want to go to the new Mass. We don't want anything to do with the new Mass. We don't want anything to do with the modernism. But what are they going to do? They're going to look for all these young men, potential vocations, cut them off, destroy them. That's what they're going to do. But our Lord will bring souls through anyway. He will. So in any case, arguing about with one of the priests in Canada, arguing about the new Mass for 3 hours. Arguing about the new Mass with some faithful in Australia for 2 hours. Arguing with somebody in Ecuador about the new Mass for several hours. Arguing with somebody in America, another person in Canada about the new Mass. Why? Because Bishop Williamson said. That's it. If Bishop Williamson didn't say, they wouldn't argue about it. Because I talked to these same people 3 years ago. They said, oh, Father, the new Mass is terrible. The New Society priest said the new Mass was okay. That's awful. Now, Bishop Williamson said it was okay. You can't just be telling people not to go to the new Mass. Do you go to the new Mass? Oh, no, never. Okay. Would you recommend somebody to go? Oh, no, I wouldn't recommend, but you can't tell them not to go. What did you tell them? I told them they shouldn't go. Okay. What's wrong here? What's wrong is they in their hearts still know you shouldn't go to the new Mass, so they don't go. They in their hearts still know it's wrong, so they say it's wrong. But Bishop Williamson said it was okay, and they're going to justify Bishop Williamson. They're going to make his thoughts their thoughts, and guess what happens? Tomorrow, they go to the new Mass. This has been happening now for a few thousand years. First, you toy with a lie, but you don't believe it. Then the lie becomes acceptable, but you still don't follow it. And then eventually you live the lie. That's the devil's way. You can't follow that. You can't follow it at all. In any case, I have to go for the late Mass and Sparta. We'll go ahead and we can close and say a prayer.